better than ever. Dogs are having a great time this morning. Just wanted to come in here real quick before I head on to the other platform. Got a little hill here. Kaya's very happy about it. Joy, come on. How did you get down there? Joy came all the way up. There's Jordan and Daisy. We're going to navigate this little hill. Kaya, what are you doing down there? Kaya. Good morning. She smells something. Anyway, we're running down the hill. And a couple of things. One, I just want to share this quick story with you. I posted about it, but my neighbor came over 2 days ago and said, my mom forwarded your podcast to me. And he said something clicked. Now, mind you, he's been addicted to either heroin or fentanyl and probably everything in between for the last 4 years. And we talked for about 30 minutes. You know, guys usually don't talk to other guys typically. But I've known him for a long time. And he's got a great soul, great spirit, just a nice kid. He went through a lot of sexual abuse. Oh, Kaya! Bye, Kaya! Bye-bye, Kaya! She's rolling in something. Bye-bye, Kaya! Come on, Kaya, we gotta go. Okay, we're gonna go bye-bye, Kaya. Good girl. Come on, Kaya! Come on, Kaya, up. Come on, Kaya, up. Come on, uppy. Come on, Kaya. Oh, good girly. Come on, guys. And so we talked for about a half hour. And it's just, one of these people that has taken a while to maybe find the courage, as Sven Erlandson talks about in his book that I'm on chapter 20 of listening to on Audible. There's a hole in my love cup, and he was on my podcasts, all 4 of them. First guest that's ever been on all 4 of my podcasts. Healthy Living with Hoot, Life Coaching with Hoot, FYI, Follow Your Intuition, and the Sports Deli podcast. And so he said in minute 56 something clicked. I was like, well, what happened in minute 56? We really never uncovered that part. But I was glad that my podcast resonated with someone. And Sven Erlandson's book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, I know has impacted a lot of people, thousands of people, if not tens of thousands of people around the world. And he was on my podcast along with Dr. Russ Kennedy, who was my co-host. And for those of you that don't know, Dr. Russ Kennedy is the author, keeping an eye on my dogs here, of Anxiety RX. And his approach towards anxiety is very different than most. And so I appreciate you guys tapping in, whether you were watching here on the live or you're checking it out on the replay. But it was really interesting during the podcast to see Sven, whose story in and of itself is incredible, inspiring, and just nothing that I've ever seen before. Somebody who was a D1 athlete, somebody who was in the military, whose father was a preacher, who's now a spiritual counselor, who sort of is given credit for spiritual but not religious term. And he's written several books, and I'm going to read another one of his books that we talk about in the podcast as well. So to watch Dr. Kennedy, a real neuroscientist who quit his practice in order to write this book, find himself, and work with people with anxiety, was something that I had never seen before with my guests. Because when I brought on co-hosts before, whether it's professional athletes, like I brought on Jelani McCoy, I think it was, to come and co-host with me and surprise Rashawn McLeod when he came on. Something like that. Anyways, when pro athletes know each other, there's already a chemistry there. But this was a gentleman who's not a doctor talking to a doctor who's now more in the Eastern space, not the Western space. And it was just amazing to watch those two interact and watch the podcast build and their trust build and their appreciation for each other build. And they were basically speaking the same language, just in a slightly different way. And so if you haven't had a chance to check out that podcast, I encourage you to do so. It's season 4, episode 8 on the Sports Deli podcast. And you can click the link in my Instagram or my TikTok bio at Mike Hootner. And all my links are there for all my podcasts. And truly was honored and humbled to have those two amazing humans with their beautiful faces and spirits on my podcast to share their ideas and stories and their vulnerability to the world, and in hopes that people will have better tools in their toolboxes and to be better versions of themselves going forward. The last couple of years, 3 years, have been a complete and total upheaval of people's vibrations. Energetically, we are in a completely new time. There's been a shift. If you haven't felt it, then you're lucky. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's new, and it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. So the other thing I want to talk about real quick is the video that I just posted, and that had to do with an entire floor of labor and delivery. I think it was in Idaho, I can't remember off the top of my head, don't quote me, is gone. And I missed the part about this in the video initially. It was just initially about doctors and nurses were leaving states that are not allowing abortions anymore for other states so that they could perform abortions. But the collateral damage of this is from the myopic politicians and the voters who continue to say, whether it's critical race theory or the LGBTQIA plus community or anything else, white privilege, that people think doesn't apply to them. And this is a perfect example of how you think by voting to overturn Roe v. Wade doesn't apply to you. And it does, because now the same people, if you didn't know this, not to insult your intelligence, the same people, come on Kaya, who perform abortions also deliver babies. And so, because they're leaving to perform abortions in states that allow it, you are talking about communities that no longer have doctors and nurses to deliver your babies. Now there's 21,000 stillbirths a year as it is. And I'm not a statistician, I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a researcher, but I would venture to say that if this pattern continues, where doctors continue to flee states that do not allow abortions, that those numbers of 21,000 stillbirths a year and the deaths of mothers are going to go increasingly higher, because if you have to drive 50 miles to have your baby delivered, and the mom has to deal with an embolism or who knows what else might happen during delivery, and there's no doctors or nurses, there's no labor and delivery anymore. Now that does affect you. So next time, maybe think about the bigger picture and don't drink the Kool-Aid that these politicians are having you drink simply for your vote. Until next time, much love. Now go do the right thing. Thanks for joining us, everyone.